Hi, it's Rich from Planet PE, and today we're going to have a look at what's on paper one. So if you have a look at my old what's on paper one video, that is still apt because that's just telling you the topics which are in. Today we're going to try and have a look at trying to predict some of the things that might be in paper one. So if you don't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and check me out on Instagram and Twitter, where you might see some little links popping up in a second, where you might make sure that you aren't going to miss anything along the way. So we know that we are definitely going to see certain topics because they are in the syllabus and they will ask something on it. So again, if you go back to the old video, you'll see that in slightly more detail. So we know that we're going to see things about the structure and function of the musculoskeletal system. So things like bones, about the skeleton, about the functions, about how we move, all those sort of things. We know that they're going to be there because they will be, because it's part of the course. Now last year, we had quite a few marks on about how the major muscle groups worked and about antagonistic pairs. I doubt we're going to see that in the same sort of detail. However, there's nothing saying that that won't be the case. Okay. Now, what we probably will see in there are things about the synovial joints and, questions along the way of how movement is allowed by the structure of a synovial joint. So you might be asked to label it, or more likely asked to outline some of the features. So for instance, things like synovial fluid helps to lubricate the joint, which allows freer movement or reduces friction, just things like that. Now, along the way as well, we know that there's going to be things about the cardiorespiratory system. So we have the cardiovascular system, which is about the heart, the blood and the blood vessels, and then the respiratory system, which is obviously how we breathe and all the different mechanics in there. Now, I would assume that you will see a question about how we actually respire, so how we breathe. So here you're thinking about the active muscles that are there, so the intercostal muscles and the diaphragm, and the effect they have during exercise. Now, because they are muscles, during exercise, essentially the only thing that changes from rest to exercise is the force of the muscles increases. So the fact that my muscles contract with more force means that my rib cage is going to move up and out more, and then when we breathe out, obviously it then goes in much faster. And it's because of the force of the muscles. So again, just make sure in your revision you are looking at that. Now, I'm fairly certain, I guess, that you will get a question on the effects of either the cardiovascular system or the respiratory system to long-term exercise. Now, when we look at long-term exercise, it is because of training, the changes that we get in the body. So for instance, my heart is going to increase in size, which is called cardiac hypertrophy. The effect of that will be that my stroke volume will increase, which is the amount of blood ejected from the heart per beat. Now, the net result of that is that resting heart rate lowers. So again, there's a structure that you need to follow if you get those sort of things in your exam. You may get it about the respiratory system, so the fact that our vital capacity will increase. But don't forget, residual volume never changes. Okay, just make sure that you know your definitions, because again, that AO1 content is key for you then to use AO2 facts to be then supported with examples. So just make sure you're looking at the correct stuff. So that is my first prediction. I think that you will get something about the short-term or long-term effects of exercise and how the body adapts to it. So short-term effects are right there and then, or immediate effects, I should say, are right there and then where you're exercising. So for instance, when you go for a run, your heart rate increases, you start to sweat, breathing rate increases. As we then go through after 24 hours, okay, we get things like DOMS that might occur in the muscles, but also think about the impact it might have on the cardiovascular system and also on the respiratory system. But what we're looking at most is going to be those long-term effects. So I think that is going to be a key topic for you to revise in this next week. The next bit is then all about movement analysis, and I know how much you all hate planes and levers, but this is the point it's going to come in. Now, there wasn't really a big question on planes and levers and axes last year, but again, they could be this year. So one of those things again to look at is if you look at the other videos that I have, thinking about our hands and how we look at the different planes, so sagittal plane, side to side, which means we move forwards and backwards. All you need to really think about is the direction of the movement in those. So flexion and extension are sagittal planes because they move forwards and back. But again, I've done loads of videos on those already, so check those out in the playlist. So with the movement, you need to understand which muscles are causing the movement, which direction they're going, and then also the things about levers, about the different types of levers that we have and where they would be found in the body. Now, the next bit is about physical training. It will definitely come up because physical training is a really important part of our course. So you understanding about one, how do we test people's fitness? So you'll be asked, I guarantee you, to use the protocol for one of the fitness tests. So for instance, if I was doing the sit and reach test, I use the sit and reach box, I take my shoes off, I keep my knees to the floor, I stretch up, blah, blah, blah. You make sure that you understand exactly how each of the tests are done. Now, I'm sure that your teachers have shown you how you've done them and you've done them P lessons. Just think back about how they were done because that is a key point. It might be a 3-mark question, but again, you think the paper is out of 78 marks, so that's actually quite a few marks. You're then looking at how we measure improvement. So you might get some data things within there. I'd be fairly certain that you would get some data about somebody who's taken part in a fitness test, and you would look at, well, what does it mean? So have a look at the normative data. It normally says from excellent, very good, good, average. You just got to make sure that number fits in the right box to be able to then get the mark to say, is their data good, average, or whatever. You're then looking at the principles of training and how they're going to be applied to somebody. So within there, you need to know about obviously the fit principles, sport principles, and then also the different types of training that we use. Now, I think that you're probably going to get a fair few marks on this about the types of training because we always do. So what you need to know is all the different types of training, the component of fitness that they improve, and then who that's going to be useful for. So in your revision, that's how you should be testing yourself, is going, right, I've got cardiovascular fitness, that's going to be continuous training, and which is good for a marathon runner. It's that type of approach that you need. Now, as we then go through, sorry to keep looking down, I've got things written down for us, we then need to understand some of those aspects that we don't normally think about too much, and I'll just give me a second, is about how we optimize training. So things like recovery. So recovery can be done in lots of different ways. So you've got things like ice baths, you've got cool downs, we've got changing of diet, things like that. Now, something that we probably don't focus on as much as we should in the course. So please make sure you look at that because I'm fairly certain you're going to get a question on that topic. So within there, you need to think about how does that actually improve people's performance. So last year, we had something about the different seasonal aspects of training, so pre-season, during the season, and the recovery, which is their post-season. And what we need to think about is how would recovery try and improve somebody's performance. So that's, again, a topic that we're looking at. And then finally, there's always going to be something in there about things like the effective use of data. So again, that's just going to be part of every single exam. We know that's going to be there. Please make sure you do 2 things. One of them, read the question. It will say label the axes, you get a mark. It will say join the dots, you get a mark. So don't lose any marks when you know the answer, because there's nothing worse than looking back at a paper, you knew the answer, but you got no marks. My quick key tips for paper 1 are look at the things like functions and structures of the skeleton. Make sure that you know the pathway of blood through the heart and through the body. Make sure that you know the pathway of air and those long-term and short-term effects of exercise. Obviously, training we know is going to be in there, and also know your definitions. They are basic that you will get marks for, and they will come up as 1 mark or even 2 mark questions, but they will assist you in those extended ones. So a quick whistle stop of paper 1 there, and also some of my predictions. Then again, I don't know any more than anybody else. I am having a bit of a hunch. looking at some of the data and what I would ask for if I was the examiner. So check out the paper 2 stuff. Also, there's going to be some quick last minute revision things that I'm going to put up on YouTube as well over this next week. And more importantly, good luck in your exams, guys. Keep working hard.